Chapter 7: The Spontaneous Precision of Instinct. As every good athlete and martial artist knows, there is an intuitive, natural way of being that is essential to swift and effective response to the rapid shift of energies and opportunities inherent in each moment. One cannot play a good game of tennis while making rational decisions on how to proceed. A shortstop does not make a leaping catch, twirl 180 degrees while still in the air, and fire the ball to second base for the double play by pursuing an analytical process and mentally deciding how to proceed. The home run hitter does not connect with a 95-mile-per-hour pitch by consciously analyzing the trajectory and velocity of the ball and calculating where to place the bat. A process of reasoning does in fact occur in each of these instances, but it is a superior form of reasoning that occurs below the level of the athlete's conscious awareness, with speed and accuracy surpassing that of even the most advanced computers. Athletes who reach excellence in their chosen sport have learned to trust a type of rational analysis that occurs almost instantaneously below the level of typical, historical thought. In the coming age it will be not just athletes and martial artists who experience this but everyone in every field. Before the coming millennium is full, such intuitive response to the moment will be taken for granted. It will become a matter of course. This divine dance of inner direction is humankind's natural way of being. There are times when it is appropriate for decision-making to be slowed to a mental level, but what was intended to be chosen consciously as an occasional option has become the historical norm. It has become the typical way historical peoples have determined their lives. In fact, human beings were never driven from any primordial paradise. Their decision to place exclusive emphasis on the cumbersome rational thought processes of their egos and to ignore, and eventually forget, their intuitive ways of processing information altered their perceptual apparatus to such an extent that they could no longer see the beauty and wonder of the earth around them. The information that enters your awareness is subject to interpretation by two separate yet potentially, and prehistorically, compatible systems. The system designed to be your primary system functions autonomically below the level of conscious awareness. In that system information is organized and interpreted by the spirit. In the system designed initially to be your backup or supplemental system, information is organized and interpreted by subjective associations. This system, of course, is the one with which you are historically most familiar, the ego and the spirit. Decision-making for the eternal spirits who chose to inhabit human biology was never intended to be dominated by sensory input. In healthy function, the incarnate being receives the body's sensory input only after it is distilled by the computer-like circuitry of the spirit's primary informational system. In the right hemisphere of the brain, sensory information is processed instantaneously, the pertinent essence being immediately projected upon the awareness screen of the resident spirit. The body-associated sense of self or ego shares this same biocircuitry. When the ego functions in a healthy, symbiotic relationship with the resident spirit, whose reflection it is, it has no need to think its way through the meaning of each and every sensory signal. During the early incarnations, when the first wave of spirits entered human form, the importance of the ego was not yet fully understood. Experience quickly showed that without an aspect of identity specializing in the material plane and the requirements of the body, one of two things was likely to happen: either the ultraconscious spirit, relatively insensitive to the frequencies of fear, would carelessly damage or destroy the body through some oversight, often as simple as forgetting it was incarnate, or, at the other extreme, the spirit would become so preoccupied with the unfamiliar nuances of material biology that its consciousness would no longer be free for the creative and interpretative enjoyments that were its fundamental reasons for projecting the body in the first place. The solution, of course, was to designate a portion of awareness as a resident material plane expert, one who fully understood not merely the necessity of fear, for the angels understood that much, but also the mechanics of how fear worked. This portion of awareness, ego, would then prioritize and regulate the currents of fear that would inevitably be a part of any excursion into the realms of matter, when necessary calling the resident spirit back from the brink of behavior likely to prove biologically damaging. So it was that ego and spirit, two facets of a whole, divided responsibilities between them and shared the same human body. In healthy function their symbiotic collaboration is as closely woven as the twin threads of the DNA spiral. In the expression of the first incarnate ones, spirit and ego were so entwined that in any moment the distinction itself could not be made. Like alternating current, their awareness patterns oscillated in a configuration of perfect harmony. The ego knew it was a facet of the spirit, and therefore it shared the spirit's joy, enthusiasm, and understanding. The only times when the ego might become distinct, and such times did occur occasionally, were when the attention of the incarnate one became so preoccupied that the incarnate one neglected sensory input of major importance. When immersed in exciting creative projects, spirits often orient their informational senses selectively, filtering out some of their input in order to devote more of their attention to the project. In these cases the ego broke in when needed. Its interruptions were not always dramatic, often it would merely remind the spirit that its body required water, food, or rest. While the spirit would dispassionately review sensory input with the clear-sighted objectivity of eternal awareness, the ego, on the other hand, proceeded differently. Its way of utilizing and experiencing the branching, tree-like human nervous system was unlike the spirit's. The ego feels the human nervous system subjectively, sensuously, slowly, and in detail, taking time to groom and care for the body and attend to its needs. Though different, the ego's and the spirit's respective uses of the human nervous system were both vital, both essential to a balanced incarnate experience. When the fall occurred, the entire human determination of good and evil shifted over to the ego's slower and more cumbersome manner of interpreting/digesting/eating the sensory input of the human nervous system. This slow, cumbersome, rational analysis of sensation played a necessary role in the ego's designated range of responsibility, but by its very nature it was subjective. Guided and directed by the spirit, the ego provided a valuable investigative tool for in-depth studies of a material nature. However, without the overview of the spirit it became truly myopic. By nature, the ego's view of itself and its surroundings was partial and incomplete. Its slower but highly specified left brain analysis of sensory information was a powerful and, even after the fall, fully operational vehicle for terrestrial research and development. Yet without the spirit's direction, it made no difference how well the left brain process operated. The mind was like a high-powered vehicle driven blindly. A lonely ego, defining itself in mortality and isolation, lacks the scope and expansiveness of the spirit. When it single-handedly attempts to operate a human mind, it is like a toddler wearing the oversized garments of an adult. It feels smothered beneath something made for another and larger being. It does not have the energy needed to use such an exquisite biological tool. Without the spirit, the ego is capable of using only about 10% of the brain's capacity, and even then its observations and conclusions are often inaccurate. A mind that conceives of itself as fundamentally separate from all that it perceives is an instrument of division. It can do nothing but divide, analyze, compartmentalize, and dissect. Everything on which it turns its attention is reduced to disconnected segments, while the spirit, the life of the whole, is forgotten. With the fictitious premise that it is fundamentally distinct from both God and nature lying at the root of its thinking, it is not capable of reason, for its premise is a lie. This is why the historical egoic use of the human mind has been so destructive. It creates thoughts, images, personal identity structures, cultural institutions, and ultimately entire civilizations that are based upon the illusion that the individual is fundamentally distinct from the ground of being from which it and all creation have emerged. Only the spirit has the necessary energy, intelligence, and operational software to use the full capacity of the human mind. When the awareness of spirit fills a human mind, it is an instrument of unity, an instrument of harmony, an instrument of cooperation, creation, understanding. It becomes a transformational vortex, a channel through which universal awareness can flow into this physical world. As a component in the spiritual structure of the universal intelligence flowing through humankind into the earth, egoic thought has a valued place, but when functioning in isolation without the overview of the spirit, its reasoning, prone as it is to fearful exaggeration, creates chaos, disorder, and disease. Perceiving separation where none exists, imagining itself, its species, the plants, animals, even the world itself as existing in fundamental distinction, egoic thought separated from spirit is devastating to people, to the environment, and to the other life forms who share that environment. The decision-making resulting from human reliance on exclusively egoic thought has given ample evidence of its inadequacy during these past millennia. Yet until now there was no other way. The voluntary cooperation of human egos could not be coerced. It has required this cycle of historical education to bring your race to its current level of consciousness and egoic receptivity, when at last we can communicate clearly with you. Even now your spirit-directed biocircuitry is processing information outside the range of your conscious awareness, outlining your behavioral options and determining which among them represent your most creative pattern of interaction. If these intuitive processes were slowed and explained, if the many factors of which your ego is not aware were outlined and their multiple implications shown, your ego would find nothing beyond its comprehension. The basic building blocks of instinctual logic are the same as those used by the ego's slower reason, differing only in speed and accuracy. Yet to access the deep intuitive wisdom of the life force, one cannot demand such explanation or interrupt the flow of moments by insisting upon a step-by-step breakdown of the spirit's subliminal analysis. One must simply trust and observe the results. Spontaneity is a rational process in the constitution of love. Its accuracy is unsurpassed. It is not clouded by fear-rooted emotions, cultural bias, or addiction to linguistically structured thought. The non-resistant superconductivity of inner biological computing organizes data at the speed of light, and with a clarity that complements the purposes of the children of the light.